Hello, and welcome to a new painting tutorial. Let's dive right in. Let's kick things off with our miniature ready primed in black. Let's dive straight into painting the rock, using black gray with the dry brush for the rugged base color. Now let's bring some life to it. We will highlight with dark blue gray, enhancing those natural nooks and crannies that really make the figure stand out. For the final touch on these elevations, we apply wolf gray to the model's most prominent parts, making them really pop. Moving on to the elf's skin, no detail is too small. We start with matte brown as our base layer, ensuring that every millimeter is perfectly coated. Next up, Dusty Rose takes the stage, layering over most of the brown, and build volume with gradually lighter shades. We now mix in 50% pale flesh to our previous color and strategically dab into the high points. This will help all the details to be clean and readable. For a unified look, the clothing base color will be the same as the rocks. This way, we'll make sure the color palette is harmonious. Now, let's get those folds defined with a 50-50 mix of black gray and dark blue gray. Doing the same as we did with the earlier steps for consistency. With dark blue gray, we go bold on the fold's highlights, making each crease tell its own dramatic story. It's armor time. We lay down a base of dark bronze. Metallics on black primer really help the metallic paint shine. The darker the base, the better. It's a recipe for that shine we all love. Using a dry brush, we sweep El Dorado across the metallic surfaces, keeping those deep areas in the rich, shadowy backdrop. Shiny gold now steps in to mark the ornaments and high spots of the armor, pushing those highlights and contrast. Switching gears to the skirt, we start with flat earth as our base. Earthy tones go very well along the green tones we'll use for the cape. And while we're at it, let's give those leather bits the same flat earth treatment. This is very efficient and maintains the color palette cohesive. Now, with a 50-50 blend of flat earth and khaki, we start layering in the lights. Short, deliberate brush strokes add texture and break up the monotony of the surfaces. We amplify these lights with pure khaki, carefully narrowing down our lit areas for that perfect gradient. The skirt's edge gets a dash of matte brown, grounding the look with a touch of depth. Mixing in 50% brown skin gives a subtle, warm glow, hinting at a story behind the fabric. With brown skin, we focus on the highlights at the skirt tips, making them very clear and easy to read. A bit of ivory, 30% to be exact, outlines the leather's profile, adding a refined edge. Be careful in this step and make sure you always use the side of the brush while highlighting. On to the bow, starting with black gray for that deep foreboding base. A mix of black gray and anthrax metal gives us our first light, a mysterious metallic blue that's as deep as the forest shadows. Anthrax metal alone now targets where the light would strike the hardest, contrasting the metallics and giving them more volume. As a final touch, we'll use Quicksilver and a touch of Mystic White to bring out those killer edge highlights. Same as before, make sure you're using the side of the brush and not the tip. The arrow also gets a dose of mystery with a black-gray base, setting the stage for a magical woodland vibe. First up for the enchantment, Tropical Turquoise. Mixing in 50% ivory, we begin crafting those pristine edge highlights, turning up the contrast dial. A blend of 30% tropical turquoise and 70% ivory accentuates the highest points, ensuring the arrow's edges are sharp enough to be seen from across the table. For the cloak, we go back to nature with military green as our base. Rocket green then lights up the higher folds like sunlight through the forest canopy. Adding 50% rotten green, we mark a softer mid-tone, making sure we blend the color together as smoothly as possible. With pure rotten green, we refine those light areas further, perfecting the cloak's lush, layered look. Now, a 50-50 mix of rotten green and ice yellow paints the final lights, highlighting the cloak's peaks like the tips of leaves in the sunlight. Onto the hair, which starts dark with basalt gray, setting the stage for the midtones and highlights to come. We mix 30% wolf gray to start defining all the hair strands, with each strand catching the light. A more intense mix, 30% basalt gray and 70% wolf gray, intensifies the light, just focusing on the right spots. For the base, we paint the grass using deep green, covering all the grass patches. Then, we'll use rotten green. This will capture the light on the grass to give it more volume. Rocks get a base layer of black-gray, illuminated by dark sea blue to make sure all colors stay in the same green and bluish tones. Lead Belcher coats the metallic decorations, making all the metallic pieces really pop from the base. This color usually shines very bright, giving our metals a polished, high-gloss look. For the gems, we apply Scarlet Blood, and thanks to the lighter base, we achieve a deeply saturated red that really pops. If you're struggling with red, don't be afraid of giving it a second pass, as most of the time, this will be enough to get a very saturated red. And there you have it! We've turned a simple unpainted miniature into a vibrant elf who's ready to hit the tabletop. Thank you for joining me in this colorful journey, and stay tuned for more tips and tricks in the next tutorials.